going on, guys? Today I'm going to be installing an AEM 30-0300 gauge kit. In it you'll get the wideband sensor harness that goes from the sensor to the back of the gauge, the harness that goes from the back of the gauge to your red, which is power, black, which is ground, AEM stickers that come with it. You got your bung and a couple of butt connectors in case you want to weld it to the pipe or put the wideband wherever you want. Pretty simple tools. I'm using snap-on impact 15 millimeter socket, cool little snap-on tester to get power, ratchet with a 7 on it, and a 7/8 socket for the wideband. And let's get it started. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to start on is actually putting the harness in for the wideband sensor. I'm going to be running it down just so that way I can have it down there for when I put the sensor in. This does have the Speed Engineering long tube headers on it, and it does have the Y pipe, which I'll show you once I'm down there. Give me one moment and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, and here we are underneath the truck. This is the Speed Engineering Y pipe and all. It does come with a spot just for the wideband. It's supposed to be at a, I believe what is it, 10-degree positive angle, but that's just how this exhaust is set up. Might change it down the road, not really sure yet, but this is just how I have it set up for now. Just kind of out of the way. It's got some room between the exhaust and the transmission, kind of the best I can do with the spot that it's in. And I just kind of ran it along here. And yes, I am using zip ties, which some people understand, some people won't, but I'm going to continue making progress up to the front of the engine now, getting the harness all tucked up and put away. Alright, so up here you can see kind of, let's see if we can get better light on that. You can see where the harness comes up, and I just kind of ran it next to this other harness to try and keep it somewhat relatively clean. And from here, I just kind of shoved it into this hole right here. This truck did used to be a manual truck, so it kind of works out for me to do on this particular truck, but normally you would run it through the grommet. Just pretty simple. Get a razor or anything, kind of poke a hole in it, shove the wire through, and I'll be moving on to the inside to show you kind of what's going on. See, we have the wire here, and if I can get that camera up in there, let's see. You see the hole right about there, and I'm just pulling it through now. Normally, most people would have a pillar or something that they like to put it on. I'm going to be doing it a little bit different on this truck, and you'll see what I mean here in a few minutes. You're going to see what I'm talking about. I'm actually going to be placing the sensor or gauge in here until I get a face plate or something for it. It will just kind of sit in there freely, but what I'm going to do is actually take the dash bezel off so I can get back there, and you'll see why the 7mm comes in handy. To do this, put it in first all the way down, and then you actually drop the steering wheel. So if I can do this with one hand, as far down as it'll go, and from there kind of just grab the top and pull back, and it slides out of place without a problem. Usually it'll actually throw the four-ways on. This instance it didn't. Now back in park, and the truck will roll a little bit. I did take the jack off the truck, so it is back on the ground, so don't have to worry about that. And I'm going to be taking this 7mm out and this 7mm out, so I can actually get the wires up through here, and I have to modify this so the wires can run through the back of it, which you'll see here in a couple of seconds. I did forget to mention, when you are taking this piece out, you'll actually need to push all 4 of these tabs. See, one here, another one here, and another one here, before you can actually get it out, because those are holding it in as well. So let me get that out of the way, and now you see I have that out of the way, and the wire right here, I pushed it up, which you can't see, but pushed up through the footwell, up underneath the plastics, and it poked up right here. So now I'm going to grab it and run it over to this hole. See, it is here, and it's actually as much wire as I have, running it the way that I did, and it is actually long enough, because you have to remember, this will sit in there. It's just held by 4 clips in the back. Just pull it out real easy. But this actually sits out past the dash, so that gives plenty of room to actually plug the gauge in. And now I'll be running the harness that gives the gauge power, and then I'll be bringing the gauge into the truck to wire that in next. So here I have the harness that actually gives the gauge power, which you can see on this end is the one with all the bare wires, open wires, and we'll be running that through the same loop using the same technique. So I'm going to skip past that and just show you when I have both harnesses here. I'm going to show you plugging it in and what I use for power. And so now I have both harnesses here, as you see, and now we're coming across the part of this which becomes a little interesting. I'm going to actually drill a hole in the back of this, or cut the back of it off, I haven't decided yet, and run those wires in, and the gauge will sit in here freely for the time being. So without further ado, next clip. All right, so I actually went ahead and cut it off with a grinder. You can kind of do it however you please if you're going this route. I do know most people go to the pillar or wherever you'd like. If you have OnStar, you can drill a hole in it if you're no longer using it. However you please, just whatever you want. And now this is simple enough to where basically just slide it all back on. Now put this back in place. All I have to do is put the 2 screws back in, put the bezel back on, plug this in to the gauge, and then from there I'll move on to actually wiring it. Also, as a friendly reminder, the plugs only go in a specific way. One is bigger than the other, as you can see, so you don't have to worry about getting them mixed up, confused, anything like that. It is very simple, straightforward, and like I said, for the time being it will just be open, as you see here, just like that, kind of free, only because I don't have a plate to put in here right now, or a piece of plastic or anything that I can glue and cut out with a circular saw and actually make fit in here. So on that note, like I said, I'll be going ahead and moving forward. All right, so this is just plugged in for now. It's not actually wired up yet, but I'm going to be putting the bezel back on. This is just for people who kind of aren't comfortable with it or not really sure about it. It just slides right back in place, as you see on both sides, and you can actually push down on the top a little bit. Not anything, you know, extreme force, but just enough to get it past the hump. Like I said, sometimes it throws the 4-ways on, and then what I like to do is actually get these lined up. There's little legs in these corners. Let me see if I can show you. It actually has, as you see, a leg and a clip as well. If you can see that. Yeah, that clip right there. And there's a specific hole for each one. I just like lining up those first, because as soon as you line it up, all you really have to do is just push, and everything kind of goes in place once you get the sides done. Sometimes the clips are a little bent, just from previous owners or even help from me doing it. But now that's back in place, I can bring the steering wheel back up, back to how the driver has it normally. Back in park, key off, and now we'll be moving on to the wire. So what I like to do to kind of try and keep everything clean, as you see here, is where the OBD2 port is. And what I am doing is actually running it up and under here, and you'll see there's a bracket right there, which I ran the wire above. And what that does is it gives me access to it over here and the side panel. Now you can see all the wires and everything. And all I'm gonna do now is pull it up through here and I'll show you what's next. What I did is I actually went ahead and cut open this a little bit, which I'll go back and use some electric tape to wrap it back up. But as you see, this 15mm bolt right here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use that as my ground, because that goes into the cab. It's the actual ground for the cab, and that'll give me my ground, and then I'll show you the process of getting my positive. FYI, the other wiring in this was not done by me. The actual owner has a speaker system in here himself, and I'm just merely working around it to get the air fuel gauge in. I work, as you see, out of my driveway, so I work with what I have. That's why I had a jack. I don't have a lift, so I do what I can where I can. So what I've done here, I've stripped the wire down a little bit more. I'll show you why here in a second. And like I said previously, this is a 15mm that goes right here. And what I'm going to be doing is actually setting this in here and running the bolt down on it. And then that's all I do for a ground. And then I have my test light right here, and we will test for key on power, because this wideband does run off of key on power. And I'll show you once it's up and operating everything. I will not be hooking this up to the OBD2 today. I will be doing it in another video to work with the HP Tuners MPVI2 software. So that will be coming shortly. Right, so now I have my test light here, and I'm going to be testing for key on power, something that's currently not on, which seems to be right here. This already has power, so that's also key on, hopefully. See here in a second. And then go ahead and turning on the key. Go ahead and test this one again. Now we have key on power. Not key on power. This still has power. And this is the one we are going to be using right here, which is a C10. Alright, so now we have our ground connected and our positive connected. So let's go ahead over and see if the gauge works now. And there we go. Now we'll just show dashes since the truck is off, but it has its heat cycle to prepare the sensor. Now when you have the 4 dashes, it does mean that it's lean all the way, as you see the 1 dash meaning, but as you see the truck is off, so go ahead and start it. There's our reading. Very lean on the idle. Did see it drop to 12 there for a second. So I'm going to finish putting everything back up, putting all the panels back on. I did take the little plastic piece off of here, the little step, and the plastic off of here, just so that I could get to that 15mm bolt easily. And so all I have to do is put the plastics back, and we will see about a driving video on the air fuel and see how that works when you're cruising. All right, so now that we see it's all finished up, everything's put back together, you see that's where this sensor goes. And if you don't have a truck with the long tube headers, you can go the option that I did on my personal truck. I went in the same location. I like this spot. I'm not exactly sure why, but you'll see. Let me grab a light first so you can see. Here we are. Now, this truck is tuned and cammed. If you haven't seen already, I do have a video of this truck idling with the Texas Speed 224R cam. See, I'm on stock manifold still, so that does mean I'm on the stock white pipe, and you can kind of see my wire going across right there. Yes, I do have an obsession with the zip ties, but you'll see I actually ran mine to the stock placement of the rear O2 for the passenger side, which you can do the same on yours. I just preferred it because it's the furthest point back on the O2 sensors. Of course, there's a plane. It's the furthest place back on the O2 sensors, and it's just what I wanted since I don't have headers currently. On this, like I said, it has headers. This is just an option if you do not have headers on your truck and you still want to go with the wideband just for tuning purposes, or as a purchase for future mods, because it does help having them. So without further ado, I'll get this thing started up here in a second, and we will go drive it around and see how the air fuel gauge works. All right, here we are. Yes, it's crooked, but since it's in a spot all by itself, you can kind of mess with it. There we are. It's extremely lean, so I will have to work on the tune on this specific truck. Half throttle, still pretty lean, especially for naturally aspirated, or actually any kind of a vehicle, honestly. Yeah, extremely lean. Just did a small acceleration. That was maybe up to 20 miles an hour. This truck, that was still wide open throttle though. Kind of rolling into it. Still needs a lot of work on the tune though. Did not know it was that lean, but that's why we have the gauge. That's why we went out, got the gauge, to find out that reason exactly. This is a 4.8 in this truck, so I'm going to have to, like I said, go through, redo the tune, and go from there. But that concludes the install on the wideband. Like I said, I will have another video coming out where I will be wiring this truck in to work with the HP tuners, so that way I can read it in the computer and work with it off the laptop, and makes it a little bit easier when tuning, because you can just work with it. I don't really have the proper words right now. Not exactly the most educated out there either, so that doesn't help. But like I said, that's all for today, and if you want to see any other kind of content, installs, anything like that, just let me know in the comments, and I will try and get out different videos, more videos. I am planning on taking my truck to the track. Like I said, it's a 5.3 Texas Speed cam truck. I do need a header still, but I'll just show you kind of what it sounds like. Here we are. This isn't my personal truck, so you will see what my air fuel is. On a somewhat cold start, it's a little bit above 160. That range of where it's supposed to be at idle. You see that just off the idle, the 4.8 is a lot leaner. I do have the AEM sticker. Can't really see it, but it is there. Just gonna have to trust me on that. But this truck's very simple. It's 5.3 4L60E built, stock stall. Like I said, stock manifolds, stock Y pipe, everything like that. So, all right, and if you're still watching, thank you for watching. That concludes this upload. Like I said, once again, if you want to see anything, I will be trying to take this truck to the track. This truck we're going to try and get dialed in. We have a lot more coming for this truck, hopefully soon. Just have to see how everything works out. But that concludes this one. Have yourself a good night, morning, whatever time it is, lunch, and hope to see you on the next one.